Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Killing Me Smalls podcast. I'm your host, Mike Small, and definitely excited about today's podcast and today's guest. I've got Dave Earley from Liberty Ballers. Dave has been a part of Sixers Wire, Fansided, Maxim, USA Today, all kinds of different parts of his background. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but I'm really excited to talk about the Sixers since St. Morey has come in. Are the Sixers appreciably better? Or are they just interesting because they've had some addition by subtraction? I've got a lot of mailbag questions. Let's have a lot of fun with this. But first, Dave Earley, welcome to the
How you doing?
Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out, having me on. I'm a fan of yours on Twitter. I follow you for a while now, so.
Yeah, I think it's mutual. I really enjoy some of the work that you've done. You've had some great podcasts lately, especially with Ben Dietrich and
thank you.
own Weitzman. You really have done a really good job. And, you know what? Usually we do the plugs at the end. Why don't you tell everybody how to follow you and listen to your podcast? Because it's really good.
Oh, thanks. You could follow me on Twitter at David Earley, like early morning, DAVIDEARLY on Twitter. My podcast lately is called No Particular Hurry on libertyballers.com.
Yeah, it's really, really good, and I would advise it. So, Dave, talk a little bit. Let's talk about you for a couple minutes, and then let's really dive into the Sixers. Your background is really interesting. You've been with a lot of different groups, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. Talk a little bit about what you're doing now with Liberty Ballers and what you feel, what direction you feel the site is headed, et cetera.
It's a lot of fun to work with. I think one of the most fun parts is our sort of off the record Slack chat that we have with the writers, where we talk about, that's kind of a place for us to vent some of the stuff we don't actually write,
and stuff also, you don't get to hear.
Yeah, pretty much. We might vent some of the not safe for work stuff, and I kind of use it as a sounding board sometimes. Like I'll put in an idea that I have out there, and I'll see if that get pushed back, and then I'll see if that pushback is right, and then maybe I was wrong. And so it's a good sort of wisdom of the crowd's oligarchy of smart voices that we have. And it's useful for me. Sometimes I won't do writing unless I've ran it by a few of my site mates. So I think it's headed in a good direction. I think we probably collectively, sort of like you guys at the Painted Lines, might have sounded a little depressed not long ago. And there's been a sort of influx of excitement lately with landing someone as exciting as Daryl Morey.
So you're trying to say, as a Philadelphia fan, we might be reactionary?
I think so. I grew up in New York, and I grew up as a Knicks fan, and I think there's a marked contrast between the two fan bases. Like, people make jokes about it on Twitter. I'm sure you've seen some of them.
Absolutely.
Knicks fans will see just a steaming hot pile of garbage and think there's a lot of hope here. Sixers fans will see a 53-win team and think, I hate the best player. We have to blow it up. Let me go on Twitter and vent that this one sucks at shooting and this one's out of shape, and I hate the coach. And there just feels to me like a big difference between the two fan bases.
I think that's true, but I think you also have to realize, for those of us who are a little bit older, who grew up with a steaming pile of garbage, when you're talking, from the day that Charles Barkley was, even when Charles Barkley was here, those teams were never any good. And then, you're looking at Andre Miller, who's a pretty good player, surrounded by Drek. And then, and then you have Clarence Weatherspoon and the Andre Iguodala teams. You knew
Dana Barros.
Barros. So you're talking yourself into all, you know what? I'm in sales also. I used to, we've talked about my background, that I used to be a sports anchor and radio host, et cetera. But I've been in sales for a long time. And before
Me too.
Satellite radio, I would listen to ESPN radio, and they had the Sports Babe and people like that. And if you just got a Sixers mention during the trade deadline, it was exciting because, wow, maybe they'll do something. And they were just never relevant. So the fact that they're relevant is actually super fun.
They really rebounded in the last 7 years. Like, They have been so relevant. It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Well, you've got two really marketable stars.
yeah,
And in the case of Simmons, well, and in the case of both of them, really, two very polarizing and lightning rod type stars.
it's been so wild. I mean, like you said, two lightning rod superstars. One's dating a Kardashian.
Mm-hmm.
One's dating a Victoria's Secret model.
Yep.
And then you have, like, you've got stuff, and then they're not even a story for a while because you got Markelle Fultz forgetting how to shoot. You got the 10th pick in the draft, which turns into the 16th, and Zaire Smith, who almost dies, and it's almost like a blip on everyone's radar. Oh, right. Yeah. But if that were another team, that would be a huge story for like 2 straight years.
You forgot the general manager who decided to tweet out everything that he's thinking and heard, and his
certainly did not forget, but I try to filter how many times I bring that up.
Yeah, no, it's never enough in my opinion. But okay, so here we are today. So we have a team that 2 years ago was a couple of bounces away from the NBA Finals, possibly. Then they let Jimmy Butler go and bring in Josh Richardson, who I was really disappointed. I think Josh Richardson was one of those guys that you see a couple times a year and convince yourself he's really, really good. And after seeing him, most days last year, he just didn't fit. And I'm pretty happy that he's gone, quite frankly. Everybody wanted Al Horford gone, so I don't think Daryl Morey would have taken the job if he knew he was going to have to explain why Al Horford was still here for the next year. So that worked out. So they've had a lot of addition by subtraction. They've brought in some shooters, kind of running it back like it's 2018 by bringing in Steph Curry, Danny Green. And here's my question to you. Are they better? Are they appreciably better than a 5th or 6th seed right now?
So I think they're appreciably better on the court. I don't know if they'll be appreciably better from a seed standpoint yet, because of the sort of insertion of the Nets, returning KD and Kyrie, and who knows if they have a trade up their sleeve. So it's possible that they're significantly better than they were last year and still a similar seed.
Can I give you a hot take?
Yeah, please.
This Nets thing's not going to work out. I think Kyrie is a disaster. What's that?
Define not work out.
This is not a championship contending team. Okay. It's a good team, but Kyrie as your leader is a mess. KD is a very, very, very great player with, how do I say this in a kind way? He doesn't have a lot of balls. He's somebody who's very thin-skinned, is what I would.
You're on the. He's a cupcake.
He's thin-skinned. Let's go with thin-skinned. And then and I think there's going to be that old guard, new guard thing where if they're going to keep Dinwiddie and LeVert and all those guys, they got a taste of being the quote-unquote man, and I think there's just going to be not enough balls to handle that ego. So I think this thing could blow up.
We got the coach now who just dealt with the old guard, new guard superstars who want and get and deservedly get preferential treatment, and the guys who are there prior who don't like it so much. And
Kyrie said he's more the coach than Steve Nash, right? Or they're going to do it together. It just seems so toxic to me. So I know I got you off track, but I'm not anointing the Nets yet.
No, I like off track. So let's just let it flow. I think I agree with you. I don't think they're at a championship level right now, but would I be surprised if they were a 4 seed and the Sixers were a 5 seed because of Boston, the Heat, and maybe the Bucks? So I could see the Sixers at this point having to. It's funny, if this were Brett Brown, he'd be like, I have the 45th version of a team to try to gel, but it's a new coach now, and he might have some ramp up learning curve in terms of getting this all to work. There's not really any primary initiators still on the team, which is at least unique.
Well, we're going to talk about that. That's definitely on my agenda here because, if I had one desire from free agency, it was an Alec Burks, Trey Burke, but a better version of them.
Like DJ Augustine type. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, somebody that, 45 seconds in the game, down by 3 or 2, I want to give them the ball and let them create something.
The
And
way Dragic looked in the conference finals, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, could that be Shake Milton? Maybe. That's I think our best hope. And you know what? Let's forget about agendas. Forget about it. Let's just get into that right now. So
Mhm.
with 30 seconds left in the game, down by 2, what are you doing right now, Coach Dave? Brett Brown
Oh, man.
said put it in Joel Embiid's hands last year.
Yeah,
Didn't work.
I think so. One of the other knocks last year was that Josh Richardson was often reluctant to simply dump it down into the post, even when Ben Simmons was out in that first
And
round.
he was a horrible passer. Josh
He
Richardson was a terrible passer.
right. I've seen some podcasts with Daryl Morey where he's talked about, he talked about his old trade where he shipped out the 8th pick. He could have taken Rudy Gay, I think, and he traded it for Shane Battier. And he said, among many, many things that we consider, one of the things was what a good entry passer he was.
Yeah.
And we had such trouble getting it into Yao Ming in the post. Like, that shouldn't have been so hard for us. And for the Sixers, that's often been this, like, what, you guys literally can't get it to Embiid in the post. He's like burrowing and grinding and plowing on a guy like Thies or Cantor. And then you've got Josh Richardson who just can't make that pass. So
Yeah.
he swings it back to Harris, who takes 4 dribbles and a bad long 2. And it was a blown possession, and it happened over and over. It was crazy.
It was for that reason I got crucified on Twitter by saying that I think that this was before free agency and the trades and everything, that I thought getting Josh Richardson out of Philadelphia was more important than getting Al Horford out. Now I just thought that Al Horford was at least playable as a backup, and there would be enough games that Embiid would miss that he would be valuable, that you could at least use him. I thought Josh Richardson held the team back. I thought his poor shooting, his inconsistent shooting, his awful passing, and his lack of ability to create for anybody else really, really hurt the team last year.
Yeah, I'm going to try an analogy. It might be a little bit of a reach, but do you play fantasy football?
I do.
So
I have multiple teams.
They were kind of
obsession.
They were kind of like one of those teams where you're stocked at one position, but you can't start them all. So you have to lose some value. Like, you're going to have to trade, like a good wide receiver for just an okay running back. And so I think they had to make a couple moves like that. And to your point, yeah, Horford's good. He's still good. If you surrounded him with what they had in Boston, he would be able to play at that nail or the high post, and he'd make some fakes and backdoor passes.
I mean, the contract was abysmal. The contract was abysmal, and the fit was terrible. But I agree with you. I think there's still something in there.
It killed me. Like, it hurt me, and I'm not over it. Signing him, watching him get so much work done on his leg over the season prior in Boston was so clear to me. This guy is going the other way.
Yeah.
And they bet on him for the next 4 years, which was just staggering. And at that price, I couldn't believe it.
Kind of similar to what the Hornets just gave to Gordon Hayward. I think Boston had a lot of addition by subtraction, being able to use that money for other things. But getting back to
better. I mean, Gordon Hayward was ascending last year. There's a chance that he could be playing himself healthier. Horford was clearly getting less healthy. Anyway.
I wouldn't have given Gordon Hayward 4 years. No way.
No, I wouldn't either. I'm just saying.
No way. But getting back to where we were. So the question that I asked you is, are they appreciably better? And here's let me get into that a little bit, because I love Danny Green. I love the idea of Danny Green. I don't love what I saw with the Lakers, but I love what I saw with the Raptors. That's for sure. So if he is that guy, and I think there's a reasonable chance that he could be that guy again. He hustles like crazy defensively, and he's a good shooter. Definitely a good catch and shoot guy in the corners. Seth Curry is a fantastic shooter, and I think he can create a little bit more than we think. He's not just a stand. He's not Kyle Korver. But I think that are they better, though? I mean, that's a skill. To your point, they got some skills that they needed, but what are they still missing? They're still missing shot creation. And a go-to scorer.
Right. Well, they didn't have that last year really either, right? So yes, I think they are appreciably better just because they'll be able to put some shooters out now.
Yeah.
Um, and what was a major problem last year, which was not having like a primary half court initiator. I'll emphasize half court because Ben is an initiator in transition. So yeah, I think they are, but because the Bucks are going to be appreciably better with your boy Drew Holiday, and because the Nets will at least be good and not awful, I don't know that they made up much ground in the Eastern Conference pecking order yet.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Here's where here's where I'll take the other side of it.
Okay.
I thought Brett Brown was done. He was cooked after the
You're
Toronto
over him.
series. I was over Brett. I couldn't watch it anymore. I think that more important, I think the team had tuned him out. And I don't think that he had any kind of a strategy to adjust back to when the league adjusted to the Sixers. So I think now you can say what you want about Doc blowing 3-1 leads. I think there's a lot to that, and we'll worry about that if he gets to a conference final and blows it. But I think that there is a much better chance of unlocking Simmons and Embiid and building a team based on the credibility and the swagger that he has. And I think the experience that he has and the fact that he was a really good NBA guard. And I think Simmons may listen to him. I think that the one thing that I'm fearful of is Ben Simmons fatigue. I saw a video of him shooting the other day. I lost my mind. I'm like, I can't do this again. We can't fall for that again. But he can't be the same player. He can't come back and be the same player. I think it's this simple. If Ben Simmons comes back as the same player that he was this year, yes, he took a step up on defense. Yes, his free throw shooting was slightly better. But he's got to be able to go to the hole and get fouled and do that a lot and not worry about the free throws. And he's got to be able to shoot a shot. I don't care. You can give me all the analytical arguments you want about how he doesn't need to shoot, and it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters because you have such an advantage having a 6'10" point guard or a 6'10" guy with the ball in his hands. If he can create and make a couple of shots, it's you can give me all the
I got
arguments
breaking
you want,
news for you if you want it.
Give it to me.
The Sixers are signing Ryan Broekhoff once again. Remember the shooter from Dallas?
Awesome.
From Justin Grasso.
There you go. Justin Grasso, previous guest on the Killing Me Smalls podcast. So
yeah.
Broekhoff, well, he's Kyle Korver, but not as good.
Yeah, he's a good shooter.
He'll that's him, but not as good. But well, there's no question what Daryl Morey wants.
Yes, yeah, he certainly is aiming to, and I agree that it would be really, really disappointing if Ben didn't improve. To your point, yeah,
I think that's going to be everything. I think it's going to be everything. I mean, I do buy into Embiid. Being there, that was encouraging. That Morey said he's been there a couple of days, every day working out. So that's a really, really good thing. I do buy in. All right. So let's transition here. Dwight Howard. Did that shock you? And where were you when you saw the Woj bomb or the Shams bomb? And two, one of our mailbag questions is, what do you think his role is in terms of minutes per game?
I was sitting in a lawn chair I have in my room.
Okay.
And I was watching the show Babylon Berlin on Netflix, which is excellent. So it's a German show, 1920s based. Definitely recommend it to anyone listening.
Got it.
And I got the bomb and I sent it to my friends on a group chain of like 4 or 5 buddies who we have long had debates about Dwight Howard, going back to his Orlando and Rockets and everything else. And so I'm good with it. I was of the camp where I said, obviously they should run it back. They'll get a big mid-level exception, keep Jimmy Butler. And people were saying, what do you do about Embiid? And then I said, look, you go get guys like JaVale McGee, Thies, Baines, Dwight. These guys go for $4 million or less.
Yeah.
Cantor. I would do what Morey has talked about doing now, which is backup by committee, especially if we can make it like Ben Simmons time. I want the backup minutes to be Ben Simmons time, where it's him looking like the guy his rookie year, surrounded by shooters, beating LeBron James in a game to lock up the 3 seed. And I think it was just a travesty that they didn't do more of that. Like,
I
for
could agree
years
with you more. I'm looking forward to some time in the third quarter where it's Simmons at the 5, Shake at the 1, Curry at the 2, Danny Green at the 3, and maybe Brokoff at the 4, and let's go.
And let's go. Yeah. I mean,
I would love to see it because those guys are all better than Bellinelli.
If you're keeping these two, and it sounds like they are, then the very simple solution to they're not seamlessly complementary players, Joel and Ben, which is true, and that's fair, and I get it. But the obvious solution to that is Joel plays 63 regular season games out of 82. If the season's 73 games, he plays less. And then that means there's a lot of games for Ben to shine the way we see him shine when they're on the road without Ben or Boban in Oklahoma or Martin Luther King Day in Brooklyn. And he just looks like a tier 1 superstar, two-way superstar. And they can do that if they put shooters around him.
It's kind of funny. It looks like they're a team of all 2s and 5s. There's your fantasy team.
Yeah, right.
I actually like the Tony Bradley signing. I think he's got a lot of upside.
Punt free throw percentage or punt running backs.
Yeah, there you go. So this was another mailbag question. 5 minutes left to go in a tight game. Who's your 5 that you want to see on the court right now? I mean, if there's no more changes.
All right, so Joel and Ben. Tobias at the 4. I guess Ben at the, 3, 4. It doesn't matter what we're calling him for on offense. We're on offense here, right?
Yeah. Well,
if we're not, I'm taking Tobias out maybe.
Just give me your 5 people. It doesn't matter who it is.
Okay.
Game, 5 minutes left. To go. Leave these guys
Tobias,
in.
Ben, Joel. I'm going to roll with Danny for the experience and the defense. I mean, even when you and I were disappointed in him in the bubble, he was shooting 34%. So that's
he's willing to shoot it, and
he's willing to shoot,
and he gets it up.
And he's good at D.
Quick release.
So that's kind of Covington like what we're used to.
He's a better defender than Covington on the ball, anyway.
Well, maybe on the ball, but not overall. I'm going to take Covington on.
Not in team defense, but Covington was
on a guard,
overrated on the ball defender.
That's fair.
So
but
who's your
our
fifth?
guy Jackson Frank would say, he's like a wizard off the ball in terms of reading a D. Yeah. But anyway, I don't want to go down the Covington road.
No, we don't have to do that. So you're down to Shake and Curry for your 5th player.
I'm gonna go with Curry for the 5th.
Wow.
I think his shooting and his experience. I think between Ben and Joel, we can manufacture an open look. But, someone's gonna get doubled. Someone's going to get doubled. Ben's going to make the right pass. He'll throw the lob. He'll kick it out to the right guy. He can do the swing pass. Joel obviously can command a double. And with this type of shooting, he could probably make the first read for once. He's rarely had a chance to make the first read and just kick it out to the man who has left him,
I have an interesting lineup that I'd like to see. I'd really like to see Shake at the 1, Curry at the 2, then Tobias at the 3, Ben at the 4, Joe at the 5. I know Tobias isn't a great 3, and that doesn't matter to me, but all 5 of those guys can create something and, for the most part, create a shot for themselves. And, Curry actually can create a little bit more than we would expect. I mean, I've seen a lot of Curry, JJ Redick comparisons, and the difference is Curry can dribble a little bit. And I think that's going to be very, very helpful. What do you think about that one?
He doesn't sprint around in the half court and pull multiple defenders around picks.
No, they're different players.
But he can dribble a little bit. So he's got his strengths and weaknesses between the two. Wouldn't be shocked.
A little more defense than JJ, which isn't saying a lot, but
his synergy defense is surprisingly good. I'm not saying he's a good defender, but I'm not saying he's a horrible defender. If you go on and look for guys who are elite catch and shoot players who can maybe defend a pick and roll, what's the old joke about Steve Kerr? Like, he's good outside the 3-point line on both ends of the court. I think Seth might he might fit that mold.
Here's my question: with all the money out there, this might be. I'm really the only thing I'm worried about with Seth Curry. And I was at that game last year when the Mavericks came in and beat the Sixers, one of their 2 home losses.
Yeah, they played the zone.
He looked great. The zone, yeah, and he looked great. I'm just worried that he's one of those guys that if we watch him every day, we might realize why he's only getting $8 million a year instead of 20.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, we got Josh Richardson, and we had what you said earlier. You said, I think he might be an underrated playmaker. I said the exact same things about Josh. Maybe he could do more. He was often their primary initiator in Miami, and then we got him here and we're like, oh, no. So he also has the injury thing sometimes. He's not always 100%.
So free agency is not finished, obviously. There's still some players out there. But as I look through the list, I don't see any that fit the bill of what I was talking about, sort of that Trey Burke, but better.
Who you read me some names.
Well, somebody had one of the mailbag questions was Shabazz Napier, your thoughts about him. I kind of like bringing Wayne Ellington in, but I guess it's kind of like that Spider-Man meme, right? Where the two guys that are exactly the same. Wayne Ellington's like a lot of guys on the team, but I do like him.
Yeah, I think they probably just chose Brokoff over a Wayne Ellington. You can't go for Wayne Ellington anyway because the Knicks gave him $8 million, and he's really like a $2 million talent at this point.
But he's unrestricted. I mean, you can give him $2 million if no one else is giving him $2 million.
Oh, okay. I didn't. So they declined. I guess they declined his second-year option.
Yes,
it was a team option. Got it.
Yeah, but I don't have the rest of the list
Spider-Man
in front of me, but I've been looking at it over the last couple of days. There's nobody that that I'm super excited about. So to me, if you're going to get that kind of player, it's going to be through a trade. They don't have a lot of trade assets left.
No, I would definitely prefer Napier there. I think Napier provides a little bit less of the shooting as a guy like Brokoff, but certainly more ball handling and playmaking. He's got a nice little pull-up bank shot I've seen.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite shot in pickup games. So,
I mean, we're talking about the 12th guy on the bench. I mean, there's not a guy out there that could be a 6th or 7th man that would spark the team.
The only reason this is so interesting is because we're going to be like, they kept a roster spot open for X and they let Zaire Smith go, and that's going to haunt us.
Do you really think so? I never saw the whole Zaire thing. I mean, even in limited minutes, I was thinking like, very meh to me. You really think that they're going to regret that?
I actually hope they do because I'm a fan of his.
Seems like a great kid, and he's been through a lot. I just, as a 6'2" shooting guard, when you had a chance to get Mikal Bridges, I regret that one for sure. And I regretted it that night too. I loved getting the extra pick, and it's interesting if you go back and do revisionist history, which Sixers fans are known for, and you and I did it at the beginning of the podcast. If you don't make that trade, you're probably not making the Tobias trade because you needed that pick to do it.
Yeah, this takes us down a much better path. I liked from speaking of revisionist, I liked it from a process standpoint. I liked their thinking. The 2021 pick, we thought it would be like the quote double draft where high school kids are eligible. Yep. And a lot of teams thought that too. So that pick had a lot of market value. And then Brett let it slip that was part of our thinking and analysis in star hunting.
Yeah.
And then the league was like, oh, we don't want that. Maybe it'll be 2023. Sorry. And so then the pick lost a lot of its value.
I will tell you that night, I thought they made that deal because they thought they were going to be able to use it in Covington and whatever else to go get Kawhi Leonard. Then I was
I'm sure their board was like Kawhi, Paul George, Butler, Klay Thompson, and Kawhi was obviously the top banana if you could get him.
I would have thought that Brett Brown with his pipeline to Pop would have had the conversation of, look, go get that pick and here's what we'll do. And that did not happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought about the same thing myself, and I guess Pop just really wanted to compete and didn't understand the value of Covington. He thought he needed a guy who takes 1,000,000 pull-up twos, and I thought Covington was more valuable to have than DeRozan, to be honest. Maybe that's a hot take.
Especially at his age and contract, he would have been. But
his contract was sick, and he plays serious D, and he shoots threes,
and now somebody just got 2 first-round picks for him. Houston. That's interesting, right?
Yeah. Hashtag Sam Hinkie memes.
Well, Dave, this has been awesome. You are going to have to come back on this podcast because you're a lot of fun to talk to. I think you have a lot of, your Twitter handle again is
David Early, DavidEarly. Thank you. Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Job. I love I've corresponded with you for a while about a lot of your interviews and your articles, and I think there's a lot of synergy between the guys that I work with on the Painted Lines and Liberty Ballers. I think it's a lot of quality content, and I would recommend everybody check them both out. And you can, of course, follow me by looking at this podcast on YouTube under the Painted Lines, or by subscribing to the Killing Me Smalls podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And I would also appreciate a Twitter follow at Real Mike Small, because fake ones are not going to give you this high quality or great guests like Dave Early. So, hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening.